It began with a rumor, a whispered number, passed between trembling lips in the markets of Dar es Salaam. Somewhere outside the city, near an abandoned stadium, a burial had taken place under the cover of night. The bodies, locals said, were not soldiers or criminals, they were students. As dawn broke, the story spread faster than the government could suppress it. Parents demanded names, reporters demanded evidence, and the Suluhu regime, already shaken by months of protests, faced its darkest accusation yet. Were the missing youth victims of chaos or of something far more deliberate? Let's find out. Outskirts of Dar es Salaam, 5:40 a.m. A group of fishermen heading out before sunrise spotted them first. The lights of trucks parked beside an old football ground. Men in uniforms moved quickly, shovels glinting under the moonlight. No one spoke. No one dared. By mid-morning, word had reached the city. Locals gathered near the site, kept back by security tape and silent officers. "It's just flood control," one policeman said. But behind him, a young man caught sight of torn school bags in the dirt. By noon, the crowd had grown into hundreds. Phones went up. Soldiers arrived. Within minutes, the first clash erupted. Tear gas, screams, running feet. When the smoke cleared, the site was sealed off completely. But one drone camera, flown by a local blogger, captured the image that would ignite a nation. Rows of freshly dug mounds, covered hastily with earth. By nightfall, the footage flooded Telegram, WhatsApp, and foreign channels. The government called it fabrication. Yet every denial only fed the fire. From Zanzibar to Mwanza, people asked the same question: who was buried and why? As the crowd gathered outside the blocked stadium, the city's electricity flickered. Something deeper than darkness was about to spread: fear and fury. Central District, 8:30 p.m. The city was tense. Police trucks moved in columns, their engines low and steady, patrolling neighborhoods known for youth activism. The lights in many homes were out, either by curfew or by fear. In one cramped apartment above a printing shop, a group of students huddled around a dying phone battery. They had seen the video. One whispered, "That could be them, the ones who disappeared last week." Outside, loudspeakers echoed through the streets. "Return to your homes. Avoid gatherings." But by 10 o'clock, people were gathering anyway. They came with candles, not weapons. Mothers, workers, students. One woman held a poster reading, "Count them, name them." At 10:45 p.m., police opened fire over the heads of the marchers. The crowd didn't scatter this time. They dropped to their knees, chanting the names of the missing. The sound rolled through the streets like thunder. By midnight, live streams showed thousands pouring into the city center, chanting in unison, "No more graves in silence." The world was watching. And for the first time, so was the regime. As the protests spread, a quieter rebellion began within the very heart of power, the whispers in the barracks. Dar es Salaam military zone, 6:10 a.m. The barracks had never been this quiet. Orders had gone out. Control the protests by any means necessary. But some soldiers hesitated. Many of them had cousins, brothers, even children among the missing. In the mess hall, a lieutenant spoke in a low voice. "If it's true," he said, "we're guarding graves, not peace." Another nodded, sliding his phone across the table. On it, the viral footage. None of them spoke for a long time. By noon, entire patrol units were refusing to deploy. Others reported vehicle breakdowns to avoid the streets, small acts of defiance, but enough to shake the chain of command. Meanwhile, protesters discovered what looked like a discarded military logbook near the burial site. Scribbled inside were entries marked only with initials and numbers, 17 names, all between ages 19 and 23. The logbook was uploaded within hours. The hashtag Jaga Youth Burial trended across East Africa. Inside the presidential palace, Samia Suluhu called an emergency meeting. Her ministers urged denial, censorship, control. But the intelligence chief warned quietly, "Madam, the truth is already out." As power fractured within, the cries outside grew louder, parents searching for children, and a city preparing for confrontation. Dar es Salaam, 11:50 a.m. The morning after the first march, the city woke to a different kind of silence. Not the one enforced by fear, but the kind that comes before a storm. Outside the National Hospital, hundreds of parents gathered with faded photos, pleading for information. The corridors overflowed with grief. Many had not seen their children since election week. Security guards blocked the gates, repeating the same words, "No list exists." But inside, a nurse whispered to a mother, "They came at night. Vans, no license plates. They took them all." The nurse's face was pale, her voice trembling. "They told us not to write names." By afternoon, the parents had formed a procession, slow, silent, relentless. They carried portraits of their sons and daughters through the main boulevard, holding candles in broad daylight. One father, eyes red, held up a worn student ID. "My boy," he said. "He wanted to be a teacher. Now they say he never existed." Police surrounded the march, but no one ran. The cameras caught everything: the trembling hands, the raw voices, the endless line of parents walking beneath the burning sun. That night, the footage hit international news. The headline read, "A nation's youth vanish, parents march for the dead." While the streets filled with sorrow, another storm brewed online, a digital spark that would ignite the next wave of outrage. Arusha, 2 p.m. In a cramped cybercafe on the northern edge of the city, a teenager named Juma plugged in a flash drive he'd been handed by a trembling soldier. "They'll kill you if they find this," the man had said. Inside the drive was a single corrupted video file, time-stamped 3 nights before the rumored burial. After hours of decoding, Juma restored the first few seconds. What he saw froze him in place. The footage showed a convoy of military trucks entering the stadium under floodlights. Shovels, body bags, voices calling numbers. One voice repeated, "Faster, no cameras." He uploaded it before he could change his mind. Within 30 minutes, the video spread through encrypted channels, then across Twitter, then television. By evening, the government called it foreign manipulation. But every frame felt too real, too close to deny. In Dar es Salaam, protesters projected the video onto the side of a government building. People gathered in silence, watching the grainy images flicker against the night sky. When the screen went black, someone whispered, "Now we know." The crowd erupted, chants, horns, and drums filling the streets. The government had lost control of the story. And inside the presidential compound, panic set in. Meetings turned into shouting matches. Ministers pointed fingers. The president demanded answers and found betrayal instead. State House, 9:45 p.m. Behind the iron gates of the State House, the atmosphere was toxic. Reports of mass marches flooded in. Ministers huddled around a table, faces pale in the flickering light of a single emergency lamp. The power had been cut again in parts of the city. President Samia Suluhu sat still, her jaw set. "Who authorized that burial?" she demanded. No one spoke. The intelligence chief slid a folder across the table. Inside, memos stamped internal security, signed by lower officers, orders for disposal of unidentified suspects. Her voice dropped. "They were children." A minister tried to speak. She silenced him. "You thought this would save us," she hissed. "Now the entire nation wants blood." Another aide entered with breaking news. The protests had reached the airport. Crowds were blocking runways, demanding international investigators. The world was no longer watching from afar. It was knocking at the door. By midnight, the president dismissed her council and locked herself in her office. Outside, gunfire echoed faintly across the city. The power flickered again. For a brief moment, her reflection in the window disappeared, replaced by the glow of thousands of candles in the streets below. The following morning, her silence would be met with the sound of defiance, from pulpits, classrooms, and the very heart of the people she could no longer command. Dar es Salaam, 6:30 a.m. The morning after the video release, churches and mosques across Tanzania filled before sunrise. There was no call to protest, no political slogan, just the heavy silence of prayer. But at St. Mark's Cathedral, one man broke that silence. Father Daniel, a quiet figure known for his sermons on unity, stepped up to the pulpit and spoke just 6 words. God counts every grave, even hidden ones. Gasps filled the church. Outside, armed officers listened from their vehicles. Within hours, his message spread across the nation. Clips of his sermon flooded social media, subtitled, translated, reposted. Young people began printing his words on posters and banners. Every grave counts. By afternoon, security forces surrounded St. Mark's. They ordered the church closed. Father Daniel refused to leave. If they bury truth, he told reporters, then truth will rise again. When they dragged him away, hundreds knelt in the street, blocking the convoy. The footage of priests and imams standing arm in arm against riot shields went viral within minutes. For the first time, religion, long silent under political pressure, had joined the resistance. That night, thousands of citizens lit candles outside their homes. The capital shimmered with points of light. And somewhere in a cell, Father Daniel whispered his prayer again. By dawn, his words would become a battle cry, carried not by clergy, but by mothers who had lost everything but courage. Dar es Salaam, 10:20 a.m. It began with 12 women. They arrived barefoot, dressed in black, each carrying a small wooden box. Reporters thought they were symbolic, until one mother opened hers. Inside lay a lock of hair, a student ID, and a photo. "Buried or not," she said into the camera, "my son will not be forgotten." Within hours, hundreds more joined. They marched down Bagamoyo Road, teachers, market sellers, widows, all carrying boxes, some real, some empty, but each representing a child gone missing. Police were ordered to disperse them, but no officer moved. Many lowered their shields. One was seen crying as the mothers passed. Crowds lined the streets, clapping slowly as the line of black dresses stretched for miles. Helicopters hovered overhead, filming the moment history cracked open. By the time they reached Independence Square, the chant had changed from grief to defiance. "You cannot bury the future!" That night, government spokesmen called the march an unlawful display. But the footage had already crossed borders. BBC, Al Jazeera, and Kenyan news stations called it the March of the Mothers. It was no longer a local protest. It was a national reckoning. But the government's patience was gone. As the mothers marched again the next morning, armored trucks rolled out. What happened next would change everything. Downtown Dar es Salaam, 3 p.m. The air was thick with dust and chanting. Thousands filled the streets. Students, workers, priests, and mothers now joined as one body of defiance. Police lined up in full gear, shields raised. The command crackled through radios, "Advance!" But as the front ranks stepped forward, something unexpected happened. The protesters began to sing, softly at first, then louder. The same song that had played at funerals across the country. Some officers hesitated. One dropped his shield. Another turned and walked away. The line began to falter. When the crowd surged, the police didn't attack. They stepped aside. Cameras caught the moment live. The entire nation watched as the state's own enforcers refused to fight their people. Tear gas canisters fell unused. Batons clattered to the ground. By evening, the government's control had cracked completely. Citizens took over checkpoints, waving white flags. the protesters marched peacefully toward the Parliament building, carrying banners with one demand: open the stadium, show us the truth. At sunset, the police commander announced his resignation on television. His final words: "I was told to protect the nation. Today, the nation protected me." With the state's defenses gone and truth buried no longer, the final act was set. Foreign eyes, buried data, and the breaking of the blackout that followed. Dar es Salaam, 5:15 p.m. The night after the police lines broke, the government struck back, not with bullets, but with silence. Offices of major newspapers were raided. Reporters went missing. The national broadcaster went off air mid-sentence. Internet speeds dropped to a crawl, and foreign media channels suddenly vanished from television screens. In a small safe house near the harbor, a group of journalists gathered around a flickering candle. They'd been hiding for 2 days, using power from a car battery to upload videos. "We can't stop now," whispered one reporter, eyes bloodshot. "If we go dark, they win." Through hidden USB drives, they smuggled footage to Kenya and Uganda. Within hours, those clips appeared online under a single tag: the burial files. The videos showed more than graves. They showed documents, voice notes, and internal memos, linking the military to secret night operations. It was no longer rumor, it was evidence. That night, a journalist named Rehema recorded her last message on camera before fleeing the city. "If this reaches you, remember, we did not fall silent. They made silence, and we broke it." Her video reached millions. The blackout tightened, but the truth had already escaped. As Tanzania's truth leaked beyond its borders, foreign governments could no longer pretend it was a domestic issue. The world began to move, and it started with one warning. Embassy Row, Dar es Salaam, 8:45 a.m. Diplomatic cars lined the quiet road outside the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Inside, ambassadors from 7 countries waited in a tense silence. The air smelled faintly of smoke, burned files maybe from the night before. When President Suluhu finally entered the room, the U.S. ambassador slid a single photograph across the table. It showed soldiers standing beside the stadium at night, lit by truck headlights. The image was already published globally. "You've lost control of the narrative," he said. "If you don't allow observers in within 48 hours, sanctions will follow." The president's face didn't move, but her hands trembled slightly as she replied, "This is our internal matter." The British envoy leaned forward. "Madam President, it's no longer internal when your youth are buried in silence." For a long moment, no one spoke. Outside, protesters surrounded the embassy walls, chanting, waving flags, singing. By afternoon, the ambassador's warning had leaked, another crack in the wall of secrecy. The next day, aid shipments were frozen, and neighboring governments demanded a formal inquiry. As the sun set, foreign drones appeared over Dar es Salaam, small, silent, circling above the city like watching eyes. The regime's isolation was complete, but the outrage didn't stop at the capital. It spilled over the ocean, reaching the islands, where fear had once kept people quiet. Now even the sea couldn't contain it. Zanzibar, 2:30 p.m. The protests had jumped the water. On the island of Zanzibar, once known for its calm streets and slow rhythm, thousands gathered at the docks holding photos of the missing. "Dar's blood is our blood," they chanted, beating drums and waving palm branches. The sound of the sea mixed with the rhythm of rebellion. Authorities tried to contain it. Ferries were suspended, curfews imposed. But the people found another way. Fishing boats ferried protesters between the islands and the mainland, forming what they called the Sea of Resistance. Meanwhile, local divers near the harbor discovered barrels dumped weeks earlier. Inside were shredded documents, military tags, and digital hard drives coated in salt. Each fragment told the same story: orders, operations, cover-ups. Zanzibar's youth organized through shortwave radios, bypassing internet blocks. At night, they projected messages on city walls: Truth floats, lies drown. Back on the mainland, chants from the islands echoed through radios and megaphones. The government tried to silence one wave, but another kept rising. The burial that began as a secret had become an ocean-wide movement. And as the waves carried voices back to Dar es Salaam, foreign surveillance, digital leaks, and a final act of defiance would turn the blackout into revelation. Coastal perimeter, Dar es Salaam, 4:10 a.m. The night sky was quiet, but the hum above was not from insects. It was the faint electric buzz of foreign reconnaissance drones, MQ-9B Sky Guardian class, cruising at 25,000 feet. They had been dispatched by a coalition of East African allies under the guise of maritime monitoring. But their cameras weren't pointed at the sea. Infrared imaging caught something strange near the western edge of the city. Large, rectangular patches of disturbed Earth, identical in size and pattern. Analysts cross-checked GPS data. The coordinates matched the restricted zones designated by the Tanzanian Ministry of Internal Security. At 0540 hours, encrypted data packets were transmitted to a secure NATO server. Within the hour, Reuters and BBC Africa received anonymous files labeled simply OP Night Burial. The images that followed showed bulldozers under floodlights, tarps stretched tight, and soldiers standing guard as civilians dug with shovels. By sunrise, global networks were broadcasting the footage. Hashtags flooded every available proxy. Tanzania's blackout, once airtight, shattered under the weight of unfiltered evidence. For the first time, even state media anchors hesitated on live air. Their scripts paused mid-sentence. The silence said more than words ever could. "We are monitoring the situation," said the UN spokesperson. But the world already knew. With evidence undeniable, the people no longer waited for leaders or diplomats. The city's youth decided to do what the regime feared most: take back their streets and their signal. Dar es Salaam, 11:47 p.m. They called it Operation 88. 88 youths, armed not with guns but routers, antennas, and stolen generator units, moved through the alleyways like shadows. Their mission: reignite the blackout zones. Under the cover of chaos, they climbed rooftops, rerouted fiber cables, and rebooted local Wi-Fi hubs using satellite uplink rigs smuggled from Mombasa. Within 30 minutes, encrypted networks went live, feeding footage, chants, and testimonies to the outside world. A hacker known as Mosi, only 17 years old, led the cyber wave. His code piggybacked on state servers, turning government broadcasts into protest live streams. "You can cut the net," he said in one viral clip, "but you can't delete the truth." By dawn, the government's firewall collapsed under 1.8 terabytes of outbound data, more information in 6 hours than Tanzania had ever transmitted in a single night. The regime's cyber units scrambled to contain the flood. They failed. And in that failure, the blackout died. As power returned to the people, the country braced for one final confrontation: the dawn march that would decide whether the nation broke apart or broke free. Independence Avenue, 6:03 a.m. From every side street and alley, they came. Students, workers, mothers carrying banners, priests, vendors, veterans. The sun rose behind them like a slow fire over the Indian Ocean. No leaders, no chants of violence, just a single cry echoing from thousands of voices: "Hatutaki hofu tena," we will not fear anymore. The army blocked the main road, rifles raised. But this time, they didn't fire. Their own families were among the marchers. Some soldiers lowered their guns. Others dropped them entirely. By 07:30 a.m., the crowd reached the gates of the Parliament building. They stood silent as the first rays of light struck the flag. It was over. Not by negotiation, not by surrender, but by exhaustion. The system that thrived on fear finally ran out of power. Within 24 hours, President Suluhu's cabinet dissolved. An interim council announced a national mourning week and a full forensic audit of the youth burial operations. The truth, once buried, had been exhumed, not by machines, but by voices. The Tanzania blackout was not just a national tragedy, it was a turning point in Africa's digital resistance. A population stripped of power, signal, and speech found strength in the very tools meant to suppress them. 3.2 tons of erased data became 1.8 terabytes of revealed truth. An information war became a people's war, and in the end, the people won. This operation proves one thing: silence is not peace. It's only the pause before awakening. If you believe truth can outlast tyranny, share this transmission. Subscribe, amplify, and never let a blackout bury the story again.